So I hope for everybody it's okay that we make this panel in English so that our Israeli members of Knesset can participate on the same level. And I hope it's for everybody okay because we have no translation. I want to introduce first my distinguished panelists. I think two of them everybody knows here. It's to the right, Nachman Shai, the president of Israeli-German friendship group in the Knesset. Nachman Shai is a long-standing member of the Knesset, and before he had several posts in the administration, and he was IDF spokesman, and is a real friend also from Germany. Always, if we needed somebody to speak to he was always there, and he is always also engaged that members of Bundestag find counterparts in the Knesset for dialogues. To his left is a colleague from the Knesset, Musi Raz. He is member of a small but distinguished group of merits in the Knesset, a left Zionist party. And I welcome you here, and I'm very interested in what your approaches are. To my right is Graf Lambsdorff. He is the president of a German Israeli parliamentary group. He is now member of the Bundestag. He before was for a very long time the face of the liberals in the European Parliament, very well known, and is now vice president of a liberal group in the German Bundestag, and keeping up the flag of friendship. And just this week he intervened because of the German attitude in the United Nations towards Israel. If everybody can read this in the Bild-Zeitung. To my left is another former MP, Michaela Engelmeier, who already lived in Israel, who is a very good friend of Israel, and who now works in Berlin for several NGOs which have a relation to Jewish life and to Israel, Maccabi and under others. And she is vice president also in the presidium of a German Israeli society. So let's start from there. And we had in the last legislature, we had as Friends of Israel in Germany a hard time because we had a foreign minister who called Israel an apartheid state, who thought that it's a very clever idea to have an inauguration visit as foreign minister, and seeing only left-wing NGOs, which was not very much appreciated by the Israeli government. We have seen that the bilateral consultations between Germany and Israel were postponed because of calendar issues, which was the official version, but in behind it was because of dissent. So, Nachman Shai and Graf Lambsdorff, how is it going in this legislature? We have just seen the bilateral consultations. Is there a new atmosphere, also with a new foreign minister? And is there, besides the new atmosphere, do we see also a different policy of a new government of a great coalition? Perhaps you start, Nachman, and then Mr. Lambsdorff.
Me first?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's a very impressive conference, I should say, and I'm glad that there are so many chairmen and Israelis getting together and discussing the state of relations between the two states. I, as a Knesset member, focus on the parliamentary level, trying to build the relations between parliamentarians from both sides. Volker was my colleague for quite a number of years. We miss him very much, I should say. Alexander, don't get upset about that, but it's fine. But we still have very good memories and appreciation to the role that Volker has been filling for quite a long time in the Israeli-German relations in many crises. And I would say something which is, in my view, not less important from that position of supporting and defending Israel in many areas and in many crises. And Israel can provide you with endless number of crises, as you know. He also had a very strong position when it came to Israeli government decisions or Knesset laws. He was there to talk personally to government ministers and to explain how it looks from the German perspective. When it came from him, it had a special impact because it came from a friend. It's not from someone who was criticizing Israel all the way, but he said as a friend and supporter, long-time supporter of Israel, when I tell you that this legislation doesn't help, or just the opposite, it hurts many Germans, and it hurts the government and the Bundestag and so on, it has a special impact. Unfortunately, the government didn't listen to him too much, but that I cannot do anything because I belong to the opposition. So I'm always in the opposition since I became a Knesset member. So first of all, thank you very much, Volker. I take this opportunity and I'll do it anytime I can. When it comes to the relations between the two parliaments, they are extremely good. Germany is the first country that we established parliament-to-parliament, P2P dialogue. There is a G2G, government-to-government, and the German government, including the Chancellor, has just been to Israel for the third or fourth time, I don't remember, but quite a number of government ministers came with the Chancellor. And when we started this dialogue, Volker was still in, and now Alexander replaced him. Group of Knesset members are coming to the Bundestag, and group of Bundestag members coming to Israel every few months. We choose topics that are in common, that we feel that we have some information or positions or observations to exchange between us, and it works very well. Each time we come to Berlin, the president of the Bundestag attends the meeting. This time, I think President Schäuble spent with us all the day, from the morning until the evening, which is nice. I mean, I guess he has other things on his mind. And the Bundestag was in. It was not that it was a vacation. It was in, and it took all the time. In between, he's been to Israel. I can talk about it later. And we found ourselves in a dialogue with colleagues. And there's a certain, language between us. So I can elaborate on that later, but in general, I would say the state of relations is good, much more than good. And many other states, by the way, are trying to adapt this parliament-to-parliament dialogue and would like to follow Germany, and we are very careful. We would like to give this exclusivity to Germany for the time being. So this is for my opening remarks, and I'm still here. I'll be here, and if you have questions later on, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Mr. Lambsdorff.
Thank you, Nachman. No worries, I'm not upset at all that you sing the praises of Volker Beck, who has been a very impressive leader of the German-Israeli Parliamentarian Friendship Group. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Unlike the Knesset, we have many of these groups. And many of the leaders of these groups are entirely unknown. Volker Beck was never unknown. I mean, everybody knew him, everybody knew what he did. And so I am trying to fill very, very, very big shoes here. And I'm saying this as an incoming president who's just been more or less voted into office recently. And we've had this first conference, which I greatly liked. I'm also getting used to the Bundestag as a parliament because, as Volker just said, I spent 13 years in the European Parliament. And I'm always comparing Brussels and Berlin. And one of the things that struck me about Berlin, I mean, there's many things that strike me about Berlin. I'm still trying to sort of, settle down in my national context again. But one of the things that struck me is in the European Parliament, we have these friendship groups too. And it is absolutely customary for these groups to travel every year. Every year. The Bundestag will allow me and my fellow board members of the Parliamentary Friendship Group to travel on the Bundestag's expense once in the full 4 years. One single time, only the leadership, and I was completely baffled. I mean, I was speechless. I was on the US delegation in the European Parliament. We traveled every year, and we saw our colleagues in the Congress, and we had these conversations. And it's really the bureaucracy in Berlin, but I will stop there. Okay, so, because everybody always says, oh, the European bureaucracy and la 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 la. In Berlin, it's much worse, I can tell you that. Okay, number one. Number two. What Nachman just said is very important to understand. The relationship of the parliaments, I think, is really quite exceptional. It is not a given that a speaker, like Wolfgang Schäuble, or before him Norbert Lammert, devotes that much time and energy and intellectual capital and to a particular partner parliament. That is not a given. On the contrary, it is a total exception. And I believe that level, the presidency level, is setting the tone for everybody else. But that, again, is not a given either, because the presidency is the presidency. It's quite remote from the life of the average MP. I see it as my role a little bit, as the chairman now of the group, following Volker's footsteps, to be a little bit of a transmission mechanism there, to try to inform regular MPs in the Bundestag, from across the political spectrum, obviously, about all the things that are going on in Israel, between Israel and Germany, in the region, in the United Nations, for example, as well, so that there is, an opportunity to form an opinion that is based on more than, the occasional piece that you read somewhere or the occasional program that you watch somewhere, because you get a very tilted impression depending on where the journalist comes from. I mean, some are fair, some are a little bit biased. And my fellow MPs are then, of course, following that because that's their information. And even, we've just heard it, a former foreign minister may be biased in a way that is quite unacceptable. And now I'm saying this, Nachman and I are both in opposition. I'm also in opposition. I can say, and I'll say this as an opposition politician, that the new foreign minister is doing a much better job when it comes to Israel. Now, he's not doing a perfect job. Still, I'm in opposition, remember? But he's doing a better job than his predecessor because, I was present at his inaugural speech in the Foreign Office in Berlin, where he spoke for the first time to the staff of the Foreign Office, the Auswärtiges Amt, which is, by the way, where I started my professional career. And he said, I didn't enter into politics because of 1968. I didn't enter into politics because of this or that. I entered into politics because of Auschwitz. And I can tell you the diplomats were very impressed. Because there you have a body of people, of course, who are also working for, a peaceful, integrated, multilateral Germany. And to have a foreign minister who says something as drastic as that made a big impression. And I think he has followed up in the way he handled his inaugural visit to Israel. I think this was a much better job than Mr. Gabriel, and I hope that this continues. Having said all that, and I'll finish on that, I believe Germany really needs to take a serious look at the voting pattern in the United Nations. I will be frank and upfront with you. There is a very difficult dilemma for Germany, and most of you are aware of it, because we're torn between the solidarity with Israel and the solidarity inside the EU. And as you all know, inside the EU, Germany is a bit of an outlier when it comes to policies on Israel. And so this is tearing at German foreign policy, has been tearing at German foreign policy from two ends. And I believe that we need to make a stronger effort inside the EU. That is, I think, where we need to achieve something, because then, knowing the General Assembly in the United Nations, once the EU votes one way, you have 15, 20, 25 countries who will simply vote the way the EU votes. And so that's where the real power lies. And it's not in the national capitals, it's not in Berlin, it's with the EU as a voting bloc. So, sorry for having been so long, but again, I'm not upset at all. I'm really happy to be here. And there are so many things that we can talk about and discuss. I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you, because take your time. We have 1.5 hours, and I think your insights are very useful for the audience and for all of us who watch the parliament from outside now. Michaela Engelmeier, you are coming also now from outside, but
yes.
You're very much on the floors and in the lobbies of the parliament. How do you see, as a social democrat, the changement in the foreign office if it comes to the politics towards Israel?
Yes, okay. Hello. Everybody's welcome. My special seat to this social democratic politics. It's not so easy for me, because a lot of my colleagues in the Social Democratic Party, I think they are also more than this Palestinian fears and so. And the former foreign minister, Mr. Gabriel, was not my friend, so. And I'm happy that Heiko Maas now is the new one, because you told us, Mr. Lambsdorff, he went to the politics because about Auschwitz, and that seems all. And it's not so easy. Next week I have a meeting with my party leader, Andrea Nahles. I don't know, she has now a new man in his team. He's Fabian Weisbart from the American Jewish Committee. So this is for me very great, because I think this man will told Andrea Nahles a lot of things about Israel and the friendship between. And I have a meeting with her, and I want to told her that I'm a little bit afraid about some little part of anti-Semitic in my party. And maybe, maybe it's okay for her. So the next time I can told you more about this. Yeah.
To continue, Mr. Raz, you are also in opposition, and you are sometimes, the Meretz party is near to the peace movement, and if I read Haaretz, words like they came out of the mouth of our former foreign minister, sometimes in the left-wing spectrum of Israel, are also quotations which are very common. How do you see the changement in our government and the new consultation process between the two governments? What is the view of Meretz on this issue?
Good afternoon. First, yes, us coming from the Israeli left and from the peace camp, sometimes we have a criticism on the government policy. But of course, in one thing, we are all here united in the support for Israel, Germany, and the relations between Israel and Germany. And I don't think I am the one to criticize the German government. I see that you criticize the previous foreign minister. At least we don't have a foreign minister to criticize.
That's also an option.
So, I have nothing to say about. Of course, the prime minister is the foreign minister.
The prime minister has 7
Don't
ministers.
tell Mrs. Merkel.
So if I have, but a little bit seriously, we see, and I think the the public in Israel see Germany as the strongest ally of Israel in Europe, and the second strongest after following US. And that means that people are following the policy today. It's not that they forgot what happened 75 years ago, but they're following the policy today. They check people for what they see, what they do, and what they say today, and not about what their grandparents have done. And I think this is very positive, especially the fact that we feel that, of course, not everybody, but the lesson here in Germany was done. I mean, the fact that Germany, the foreign ministers, I think all of them see Israel as an ally. And the fact that we have this friendship between the parliaments, this friendship between the people. I think that many people have, a cooperation on education basis, on cultural basis, economic basis, and so on, is very important for all of us. And I'm pretty new to the Knesset. I'm not part of this friendship group, but I can say that all over the years, I think that I met German politicians, not many of them from the CDU, but from all the other parties, again and again and again, and I think we understand very, very well the two societies. And I want to say one more thing. For me, relations between Israel and Germany is not only how Germany should defend Israeli views in the UN or any other places, but a real friendship and cooperation, and how we Israelis can learn from Germany in many things, environment, cultural, economic, and how you can learn from a way smaller state that sometimes can teach a lesson too.
Thank you. We are now in troubled times if it comes to foreign policy, because the old structure, at least, which was framing the last 20 years, is gone away with the Trump administration. We have new foreign policy there. Sometimes, I think, if it comes to Israel, with glimpse where you think, okay, this is not a totally crazy idea, but because of the erratic agenda in a whole of a Trump administration, it doesn't have an influence on the other states. And I think the European states and the European foreign policy, as well as the German one, are reacting a little bit like Trump says A, then we say Z. If we look on UNRWA, Trump administration withdraw from the funding. We said, okay, we will fill the gap. The same for the money for the PA. The same withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal. How are you discussing it within your parliament and the parliamentary friendship group? Is there not a possibility to use this crisis which is created by Trump for a more creative way and to forward common goals like stopping the armament program in Iran, stopping multi-pension program in Ramallah, etc.? Do you have any ideas or initiatives on where you want to pressure the European policy perhaps in a different way than we are doing it now? I start now with Mr. Lambsdorff and then Nachman, Shai, just to a little bit have a vibe.
We can change the order, no problem. If you want someone else to start, Volker, I'm ready to answer the question. We usually do not discuss other countries in our conversations. We do it informally. between ourselves during lunchtime, or we have a lot of time in breakouts, but not in the meetings themselves, because we focus on issues that we like. I think we were still on when we discussed immigration and integration a year and a half ago. It bothered you, of course, and it occupied us for many years. You have 1 million refugees in this country. We had many. There are differences. It's not exactly the same. We are aware of the differences. But yet, Israel has a lot of experience how to integrate people coming from abroad, cultural differences, economic differences, all kinds of. And I shouldn't tell you what you are facing here this time. So we asked ourselves, how can we help, and in what way the parliaments should be involved in this process of immigration and integration. Last time we discussed transparency in our parliamentary work, and many issues that there are certain internal dialogue between parliamentarians from all over the world. It's a world by itself. But of course, when it comes to foreign policy, I will express my view. Israel is very lucky, I should tell you, and I'm not sure you will share that view with me, that Trump is currently the President of the United States. And I'm very honest with you, I, as a member of the opposition, never imagined that we have such a friendly president at the White House. I know it's controversial, and especially here in Europe, and you have different points of view, and on many other issues. But if I just focus on Israel-U.S. relations, I think he's the friendliest president ever. And some of his decisions, like moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Musi will disagree with me, but that's fine. That will make this discussion lively. I think it was a brave step. When it comes to other issues dealing with Israel's security, we share the same view with the White House. And I have a certain perspective of quite a number of years. I couldn't believe that a president will express his views so openly and so friendly with Israel. There are other aspects. Where does Israel stand vis-à-vis the Democrats? That bothers us a lot, because all the cards now on the Republicans. And what if, actually we saw a little bit of it now in the interim elections when the Democrats took over the House. And what happens if 2 years from now, or even 6 years from now, the Democrats will be back in power? Israel's support should be bipartisan in America, because every few years they change power. And the Republicans are not supposed to be there for the rest of history. But again, I should say that from the Israeli perspective, we enjoy a kind of honeymoon with the United States. Never been before. With Germany, it's a different story. I've never attended a meeting between Netanyahu and Merkel, or Merkel and Netanyahu, but I'm sure they disagree on many issues. It doesn't hurt the general support of Germany to Israel, and anywhere, any time, we know Germany stands with Israel. But in the closed room, I'm sure Merkel tells Netanyahu, you should go forward with the Palestinians, you should find a solution, because we care for Israel's security, because we care for Israel's future. You have to find a solution, and don't wait, do it. And Merkel is not in a position, Germany is not in a position any longer to stop the EU to move forward with its policy towards Israel, not as it was in the past. So there are different venues here. We keep this dialogue with the German government as well. We try to tell the government. So I'm not representing exactly the government, but I'm sure I know what the government tells. You know, there's no partner on the other side. We cannot talk to them. What do you say about Hamas? Hamas is on the one hand, and Fatah is on the other hand. Whom are we going to talk to, and so forth? There are answers here. I myself believe that Israel should take the initiative and should develop a dialogue with the Palestinians and should lead the process towards the solution of this long-time conflict between us and them. On this, I'm much more with the Germans than with the government. Excuse me for saying that. It's not only the Germans, it's many states. But there are two different views. Where does it come when Trump vis-a-vis Europe? It's a different ballgame. I really don't get into that. I'm sure I've watched him. The recent conference here, on his way, what he tweeted from there, when he tweeted on his way, when he went back, or whatever. It's hard to follow all those tweets, as you know, because it changes once in a while. But we try not to interfere. But it has to do with Israel as well. I have no doubt about that. But we watch the scene. We don't interfere. In this case, we don't interfere in the relations between the United States and its European allies. We do not. We just watch the scene. That's it.
I was hoping, at the beginning of the Trump foreign policy era, if you want to call it that, I was really hoping for something to be unconventional, unusual, because the guy, for all his faults, I think everybody would agree that he's quite unusual. And the fact that his first visit was to Riyadh, and that there was a clearly anti-Iranian policy, and that there was an alliance forming between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, gave me some hope that maybe something was going to come out from the Arabs on the one hand, from the Americans on the other hand, to come up with what I would have considered a really courageous thing, very unusual, an American president presenting a peace proposal for the Middle East in his first term in office. American presidents always do it in their second term of office because they always fail and don't have to get reelected. So that would be the usual way of proceeding. So my hope was that there was going to something was going to come out of this. Jared Kushner, the close connection also to Jewish life, etc. There was real hope there. And then to find out of this hope for a comprehensive approach, it might not have worked, but there was hope for a comprehensive approach. An isolated measure, one, to move the embassy to Jerusalem. I disagree with you on that one. That was not courageous. That was, nobody knew why. It sent a signal, the United States stand by Israel. Fine, we knew that before.
Why did you move the embassy from Bonn to Berlin?
The
capital. Why did you move the capital from Bonn to Berlin? Sorry, not the embassy.
Not the embassy.
We moved the embassy.
Okay, Nachman, that's a very delicate question because No.
I don't want the audience to fall asleep.
Hear me out. That's a very delicate question because I am the MP from Bonn. I always disagreed with the move.
So it's even worse.
I think we should have moved our capital to Frankfurt. That's a different matter.
I was in favor of Witterschlick.
No, but I mean, listen. If we do a tongue-in-cheek thing, Frankfurt, most important newspaper, biggest airport, biggest financial center, the hub of Germany is Frankfurt. Berlin is a village, sort of somewhere on the Polish border. I mean, why are we in Berlin? I mean, hello?
That's original.
There you go.
But who decided the question of the capital in Germany?
The Bundestag.
Okay.
The Bundestag decided.
Who decided in Israel?
In Israel?
Knesset.
The Knesset can decide to go to Haifa, but that's a different matter. Okay, but
actually Ben-Gurion decided.
It's comparing apples and oranges, obviously. So what I was hoping for was the big solution, and out, es kreiste der Berg und gebar eine Maus. It was a mountainous expectation, and the mouse came out. So I was a bit frustrated about that. I don't believe it's going to help anyone. Second issue, the one that Volker brought up earlier. I think that's interesting. As a liberal, I'm a liberal internationalist as well. I'm not speaking as chairman of the parliamentary group, but as a liberal foreign policy maker. Multilateralism is our way of thinking about foreign policy, building a rules-based order, tying power to rules. I mean, that's the liberal constitutional state too. Die Bindung der Macht an das Recht. That's what we want. And so when Trump was announcing his withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, from UNESCO, from UNFPA, the Population Fund of the United Nations, from JCPOA, And we said, well, listen, it's Europe's job to stabilize the multilateral order. There was no echo, no discernible echo from the Foreign Office, from Mr. Maas on that one, except on one occasion, and that was UNRWA. And I was speechless. I mean, because that's the one institution where I'd say, boy, do they need reform, to put it mildly. Okay? I mean, the school books, the strategic approach, who's a refugee and who's not, all of these issues. UNRWA is really, it's a construction site. It's not a perfectly functioning organization, and the Americans simply withdrew. So I think that would have been a breach, and that was your question. Shouldn't we use some of the unconventional results of Trump's policy to perhaps, move in and do something with that? In UNRWA's case, I think it's a missed opportunity by the German government. I really do think that we could have done something to start a discussion. Not simply withdrawing, like Trump, but to have a discussion on this, because I really believe that this is that this was a mistake. Why is there no, parallel initiative on UNESCO? Why is there no initiative on UNFPA? There's nothing happening there. But on UNRWA, bam, he moves in. So I found that was a mistake. I believe the multilateral order needs stabilization. I really do. Particularly for a country like Germany, we're too small. Nachman is right. We even in the European Union, we no longer have the power to steer the entire body in one way or another. That's gone after enlargement. That's gone. So we need organizations within which we can operate successfully and find allies. Sorry, again, too long, but that was the Bonn thing.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, I felt, but I didn't hear that you were not totally agreeing on what Nachman says. Please present us your view on these topics.
No, basically I agree with most of what Nachman has said. For the embassy issue in Jerusalem, West Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. I have said West Jerusalem.
Yes.
And I would like to see all the embassies in West Jerusalem in the future, while all the embassies to Palestine will be in East Jerusalem. Now, I am not against moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. By the way, they didn't check and it is in East Jerusalem, not West. But they did not move the embassy. They just put a sign or a poster there, American embassy.
It's a fake.
But the real American embassy is not there. One. Second, in spite of the fact that I've said that U.S. is the strongest ally of Israel, when I want to come to here, I can go to the airport, take a plane, and land. When I want, or an Israeli citizen wants to fly to U.S., we have to apply for visa. In 11% of the cases, they refuse. Most of the cases are young people from certain origin. So I'm saying that. And one more thing, I was born in Jerusalem. West Jerusalem, by the way, before 1967, but it's not important. When I apply to visa to U.S., I should not write down that I was born in Israel. I should write down that I was born in Jerusalem. So in many cases, still the American official way to treat Israeli citizens is way worse than the European one. But most important for me to say here that, okay, we talk about, all of us want a kind of a deal that Israel will have peace agreement with his neighbors. I think we are united in that. But here I ask, what is Israel? Where is Israel? Even in this conference, when we talk about Israel, where is this Israel? What are the borders? What are the boundaries of this Israel? So, in a way, okay, there is what the international community, I think all the states recognize, including the Arab nations who initiated the Arab Peace Initiative, saying 67 borders. Israel doesn't say no. Israel said two things. First, Israel annexed the Golan Heights, and it was mentioned earlier, I think, by the mayor, who talked about that. And Israel annexed East Jerusalem. But not more than that. So now, what about the West Bank? Is that Israel? Because I see that people from the West Bank, Israeli settlers are here. Okay, they are welcome. I'm not... but do they live in Israel? From my point of view, the answer is no. From the point of view of the Israeli law, the answer is no. From the point of view of the international law, the answer is no. So where is this Israel? We have to answer ourselves, and then we can solve the problem with our neighbors.
Michaela, what does say the German-Israeli society on this tricky things like capital and borders?
Yeah. Yeah, for the German-Israeli society, is Jerusalem the capital of Israel. We have a statement, I think half year ago about this, and we say for us is Jerusalem the capital of Israel because Israel is a sovereign state, and all sovereign states can hold anything and can take the flag and the speech and the capital, and so for us is Jerusalem the capital town of Israel.
If it comes to Jerusalem, this question is more a question to you, Mr. Lambsdorff. I didn't understand why Europe didn't discuss the view of the Russian Federation on this topic. The Russian Federation last spring issued a press statement where they criticized the settlements, and as an obiter dictum they mentioned, by the way, the Russian Federation is seeing West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And I think two principles were in this statement. That first, a nation is deciding on its own which city it likes to declare as its capital, and that the borders of Israel, and which means also the situation in Jerusalem, is not yet settled in an international treaty, even if two basic laws of Israel say the contrary about the status of East Jerusalem, but everybody... And in one way, Trump didn't contradict to this. He just mentioned the conflict of his decisions with other principles. He just made a nice statement to get applause from a certain side. Why there is no discussion in foreign policy in the European states about a different approach?
Now, one has to, this is going to be technical now, but there is a very important distinction between a sovereign decision of a country to decide where its capital is and international law, which is a different level. For Germany from 1949, West Germany, from 1949 to 1990, we always said Berlin is the German capital. The Allied powers would not allow us to have governmental functions there, and so Adenauer had to go somewhere else to Bonn. So our national legal position was Berlin is the capital. Allied powers decided otherwise. We were under occupation, and so different level of law. The government was settled in Bonn. Same with similar situation here. Israel can decide, obviously, that Jerusalem is its capital and West Jerusalem is Israel's capital, no problem. But under international law, East Jerusalem's annexation has not been recognized. And so United Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem, cannot be in international law considered the capital of the State of Israel. That is completely distinct from the domestic legal point of view. I mean, it's a separate matter. And it's extremely technical, but as you just said, we don't have the final arrangement. We don't have the final borders. We don't have it. And until that is settled under international law, and you have the congruence of national and international law as we had in unification, when the international community recognized, first of all, the German borders, German sovereignty, and the German capital, you had congruence between the international and the national situation. That is not the case in Israel today. That's not the case. And so therefore, for the time being, I believe, and it's true, they put the sign there, embassy, but it's not the embassy. The embassy is still in Tel Aviv. It's not really going to be helpful to achieve this congruence, because you only antagonize the people that you need to talk to. And having said that, the people that you need to talk to, I'm completely with the Israeli side when it comes to the desperation concerning the state of affairs on the Palestinian side, because there is no one to talk to seriously, and that's a real problem, and I recognize that fully. And so I can also recognize some impatience on the topic when it comes to Jerusalem. I can also recognize some impatience perhaps in certain US circles that led the president to take that decision. But bottom line, what we should strive for is the congruence of national and international law in whichever way. But that would settle the issue once and for all.
Mr. Katz, I wanted to take up one hypothesis of what Mr. Lambsdorff just said. He mentioned there's nobody to talk to. You mentioned your Meretz is representing also a little bit the peace movement in Israel. What would you say, to whom should a different Israeli government, perhaps after the next elections, talk to on the Palestinian side, and what should they talk about? Is there something the Palestinian side, as it is now, with Hamas in Gaza, with Abbas in Ramallah, is there something they really can offer to Israel, where Israel could rely on in the future?
Yes, thank you for the question. First, I think we should think about the question, what should we talk about? Because when I answer this question, I can ask whom should I talk to. I think that since the occupation in 1967, and by the way, Israel has a lot of benefits from the occupation, especially economic benefits, but we pay a price, of course, from the moral point of view, and I think from the security point of view, because we had way more casualties since 67 than before 67. Anyhow, if we want to achieve peace agreement with the Palestinians, we should bring an end to this occupation. It's exactly what Menachem Begin, the late Prime Minister, has done 40 years ago with Egypt, and I think it's worked very successfully. And it's exactly what we should do here, with all the differences. And I do know that there is a difference. Egypt is a state, Palestinians are not state, and there are a lot of change in the ground. I cannot ignore the fact that about 600,000 Israelis live east to the Green Line, east to the border, in the occupied territory. So we must find a solution for that. Right now, in the 51 years of occupation, no Israeli prime minister ever said, I agree to 67 borders with swap of land in 1-to-1, yes, in the same ratio. And I think this is the main reason, not the only one. There are a lot of reasons in the Palestinian side, but this is the main reason why we did not achieve an agreement up to now. What I've just said, 67 borders with swap of land, it's exactly what the Arab League Peace Initiative says in the last 16 years. It's exactly like what the 57 Islamic states are saying. It is exactly what the UN resolution, not from 47, for 2012 is saying. So I think first we have to say that we agree to that, and let's talk about the details. And if we agree, I think that the partner that we have is the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and Abu Mazen. They are very good partners for us in the last 10 years for security cooperation. Why shouldn't they be a partner for a peace agreement? With all difficulties, and I don't ignore the difficulties, but they are not the only partner. I see that 22 Arab states as partner. Maybe there are a few that we cannot talk to, like Syria, yes, because of the regime there. And I see most of the world as a kind of a partner to this multilateral solution between Israel and Palestine.
This would be a different approach, what I understand as our German approach, because we normally think of a bilateral settlement. And you say your hope is to bring in the Arab states to have a more reliable construction.
Yes, because I think it must strengthen the agreement itself. But of course, the agreement should be bilateral. By the way, I'm not sure that this is the place to talk about, but negotiations, bilateral negotiations, I'm not sure that they can work, and sometimes you have to replace them in other mechanisms. If the Brits has to negotiate with Ben-Gurion in 1947 about the borders of the Jewish state, I think they could negotiate until today. You couldn't agree to a state without Jerusalem, without the Negev, without the Galilee in the north, without Jaffa, without Lid, without Ramle. But the fact that it came as a kind of UNESCO, as a committee that recommended to the UN and it came as a UN resolution, worked to achieve that. So I don't think that the UN resolution dictate will not work, but we have to find mechanism to support this negotiation.
Nachman, what is your approach? With whom wants the Zionist Union would talk in the actual situation if you get the chance to run a government again?
I thought earlier that you know the outcome of the upcoming elections in Israel, Volker. That will make you a profit. But because you asked what will be the difference between the present situation and the future one, I don't want to disappoint you. We are working very hard to replace the government, but the prospects do not look very promising. At this stage. We don't know, of course, what will happen, but according to all the polls, the present government may come back or return. But if we have a chance, hopefully we never lose hope. Is that we will try to renew the dialogue between us and the Palestinians. And look for, first of all, I'm not sure Abu Mazen is the right partner at this stage because he's already made up his mind that he will not move forward. That's it. He wants to be remembered in history as the one that has been there for quite a number of years, but nothing has seriously changed. That's bad, but we had many hopes when he came to power, but that's the way it is. So he's not a partner any longer, unfortunately. We don't know who will replace him. But I feel that this is our responsibility and our commitment to future generations. I'm a grandfather of 6 now, and I tend to ask myself more than once a day, what is the country that I'm inheriting or will inherit to my grandchildren? And I want them to live in a Jewish democratic state. That's it. That's why my parents came to Israel in the 30s of the last century. And they had a dream. They accomplished their dream. We are the generation from the day one of the State of Israel until now. But the question is what will be there in the next 50 years. We may easily lose our majority in the territories that we are holding right now, what Musi calls we are occupying right now. But if we let the Palestinians have full rights, they will easily take control of the Knesset if they vote. And it will no longer be a Jewish and neither Jewish nor Jewish democratic, a Jewish state. If we don't allow them to vote, we can, because we control the areas, then it wouldn't be democratic. And I don't want to choose between the two of them. I would like to have both. Jewish and democratic. And it can be done only in the 67 borders plus another, well, I would say we have a plan what kind of territories we should keep in our hands, and there's a way to exchange territories between us and the Palestinians in order to keep most of the Israelis living in the territories that be living in Israel and so on. Well, there is a way to settle that if the two parties are willing to. But I'm concerned, what if not? More and more, I ask myself, what if not? I've been a Knesset member for the past 10 years. It's quite a long time. We haven't moved one single centimeter towards a solution. Nothing. I had a dream. I said to myself, why do you want to be a Knesset member? To shape the future of the state of Israel, and I purposely thought about my grandchildren. At the time I had one, now I have 6. Okay, my children are working very hard. I have a lot of credit. But then what? What kind of country Israel's going to be? And I'm not speaking about the moral implications. What does it cost Israel to be running the life of millions of people? Forever? Forever? What does it do to Israel internally? What does it do to young people that serve in the territories? And what do they think and how do they feel when they come home? What kind of change it makes to their own life? We have to think about it. It's already 2.5 generations of Israelis. And you should ask yourself why the labor is unable to take over the government again. Because those who served in the territories, and half of the military service of our young boys and girls is in the territories, they change. They change. They think differently of Arabs. And they ask themselves, okay, why not? We can continue that forever. And the answer is no, we cannot. So first of all, they turn right and vote for the present government or similar parties. And secondly, what do you think about other people? About human values? About are people equal? Everyone is equal to the other? I'm asking myself. I mean, I know the generation. I've been there when it started, and I've been following everything in Israel since then. So I talk to those young people, those who were born in the present situation. They don't imagine that it has ever been different. So for them it's natural, but it's not natural, and it shouldn't be the same. So our government, if it happens, if this miracle happens, it's a matter of miracle now, because we know I told you where the tendency is, what the trends are. How do we change them? If we are able to convince millions of Israelis, millions, to vote differently? Or are we doomed to live in this with this government or similar one in the future? Because this government will not make peace with the Palestinians. That's the point. So, back to your question, Volker. We will do our best to save the country. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Now, I have 2 questions from the audience. Angelika Köster-Lossack, who is also a former member of Parliament some years ago, and then Gabriele Meros. Angelika.
Actually, this was already a good final statement, and
You like it?
yes, something to work on. But I remember when I was in the German Israeli Parliamentary Group during the Oslo process years.
Mm.
Even then, though we had lots of hopes, more hopes than today.
Sure.
Even then, there was a lot of problems to confront in our own society, with the civil society in Israel, on the part of our partners from Meretz and Avodah, Meretz.
Mm.
All the older, rank and file of Meretz, we were meeting often. My question is now, I'm not going to fantasize about the future, but my question is now, in terms of the support pattern that you could gain as parliamentarians in Israel, in the wider civil society, what does it look like? At that time, there was quite a good interchange with with all kinds of human rights organizations and civil society organizations, the women's movement, peace movement anyway. Now I have no clue. I'm in Israel often, also for longer times, was there last February. But what is the situation now? And for us, I would have to say, in Germany, I'm no longer in the parliament, but I'm active still in German Israeli Society and other places. The interaction between parliamentarians here from the side of the parliament in these issues and the wider civil society is critical. It's not really a foundation that we can deal with. We are fighting. I'm not going to exaggerate, but we are fighting almost with standing to the wall, because we have to be on the defensive all the time.
I understand you very much, Mr. Shai, because I have 25 cousins in the army during the years. But I would like to ask to build a basic to discuss in the EU and in the UN. Why are the parliamentarians not asking for that the Charta from the Hamas will vanish? Because if you have this Charta on the table, this is a Charta about death threats, yes? And if the person you discuss about everything has still this Charta on, I think it's not basic to discuss. And I don't understand since years that all the parliament groups and all the parties and EU and UN never claim that and says, okay, we are sitting at the table, we're discussing it, but first we have to make the first step to vanish this Charta.
I'll give you all now the chance for a closing remark in answering the question of the audience, and I may add perhaps one small question. In the last legislation, Nachman, Shai and me tried to convince both of our governments to allow double citizenship between Israel and Germany in general. We didn't achieve yet. What are your views? When will we get it? And what are you working for it? Mr. Lambsdorff, we start with you and then go around.
Why not?
Ich habe gesagt, Sie sollen die drei Fragen wenn Sie komplex
On the Hamas Charter, there's absolutely no doubt that it's a document that eventually needs to vanish, full stop, period. The one question is, does it have to vanish before you enter into negotiations about ending hostilities, yes or no? And then, of course, the old diplomatic adage comes, you make peace with your enemies, not with your friends. The IRA was still calling for the unification of Ireland when the peace process started that led to the Good Friday Agreement in Ireland. So, yes, at the end of the process, it needs to be gone, full stop. At the beginning, as a precondition, tactically speaking, professionally, as a diplomat, I would say you can ask for it, but you're not going to get it. At least I wouldn't expect it. Dual citizenship, I'm totally in favor, but there Greens and Liberals have always been very close. We'll have to talk to the Conservatives here. As far as a closing statement is concerned, I mean, this is an ongoing relationship. There's not going to be close. But I think what this discussion this morning showed me is that there's so much going on, and there's this urge, and what Nachman just said, and this passionate appeal really for serious thinking about the future of the state of Israel, the Jewish democratic state. That is something that I believe, as an outsider, as somebody who's not even an expert, who hasn't been, following things too closely. I think this is something that touches us, directly, all of us. Because if we speak of Germany's responsibility for Israel, etc., we need to be thinking about these things as well when formulating our foreign policy proposals. And so I found this a very, very convincing, strong, as you said, a closing statement, but not in the sense of closing something, but in the sense of appealing to us to keep open minds and open hearts going into the future and trying to save this unique character of the Jewish democratic state. And what I can only say as Volker's successor is that from my modest position at the head of this group, we'll try to do our best to stand with our Israeli friends in the difficult journey that they have ahead of them.
Yeah. About the civil rights. The civil rights organizations and the civil society as a whole. On the one hand, since Oslo, it is much stronger and much more active, and it has an important role within the Israeli society and the Israeli public life. On the other hand, because of the government policies and because of many limits, and Volker and I were fighting together to eliminate the legislation dealing with their financial resources, how to stop financing them from abroad and so on and so forth. But only them, not the other organizations from the other side of the map, because they enjoy private donations and private donors, and on them there's no limit. There's limit only on those who are financed by states or by public foundations and so on and so forth. And we failed. That's where Volker had a very important role. He tried at least his best, I would say. The government analyzed the situation. They can win votes in the Knesset, and you understand how it works. Votes. But we use extra or out of the parliament powers to help us. The media, the civil organizations, the civil society organizations, and not using but relying on the Supreme Court as well. The government identified it. It's not a top secret. They know where we are going, even this week when we have a very crucial vote on the Knesset about financing cultural activities in Israel. It's the same. It's coming from the same family of bills and legislation. We trust the media to help us. We trust the civil, the artistic community in Israel, and so on and so forth. Because in the Knesset, we lose all the time. We raise hands and we lose, one after the other. But then, it's not the whole game. The whole game is all over the country. So the government is focusing on the Supreme Court, how to change the manning of the Supreme Court with other judges. There is a certain committee to appoint judges, and they have a majority there. So they appoint Supreme Court judges with similar opinions.
Simple majority?
They have a majority because they have an alliance with the Bar Association. The committee is made of 9 representatives, and we are there as well. I mean, opposition, coalition, a government, Bar Association, and the court itself. But if they made an alliance with the Bar Association, and sometimes also with the present representative of the court, but not all the time, they can appoint judges, Supreme Court judges, with similar perception of Israeli politics.
And we don't really have a representative of the opposition.
Right now, because of
yes,
that's a different story. We don't even have one representative there, but that will change in the future. Right now, he's back in opposition. Robert is back with us.
But he's in the far right.
It's very strange. I mean, I don't want to bother, but someone who was in the opposition, then his party joined the coalition, and he did not resign. He remained on the coalition. But meanwhile, now he's from the Lieberman's party. Now, Lieberman resigned. You can always trust Lieberman to resign on a certain stage. After a year or two, he will resign. So it finally happened. He resigned. So this person is now
8 times.
Yeah, it happened 8 times. So that's really a side issue. Back to the question. they try to weaken the civil society organizations. And that's bad. Not that I agree with everything they are doing. There are organizations that I disagree with what they are doing, but I always fight for the right to speak and to perform within the Israeli society. That's what democracy is all about. The government tried to weaken them. About the Hamas, we are launching a war against the Hamas. We try to convince the European Union. By the way, also Hezbollah has then been recognized as a terrorist organization in the EU. Hamas, of course. It didn't work so far. There's no doubt Hamas is a terror organization doomed to destroy Israel. That's part of their covenants. But we haven't been successful so far, and we try to convince colleagues from the European Parliament, from other parliaments in Europe to help us. It didn't work so far.
Yeah, but they are labeled terrorist organization as well.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay, but they haven't changed the... We are not going to negotiate a peaceful solution with the Hamas. But what we have to do is to indirectly talk to them and reach an agreement for the next 10 years. Okay, that's what we need. Quiet period along the border. I would like to see much more. I would like to see the people of Gaza getting out of this miserable situation that they live in. This is one of the poorest places on earth. Without electricity, without water, without nothing. Really, the worst thing you can imagine happened in Gaza, and most of the credit should go to the Hamas. It's not about Israel there. It's about the Hamas and the Palestinian government. They also contribute. They do their best to spoil the life of the people, the Palestinians living in Gaza, because they are fighting with the Hamas. And the people of Gaza pay the price for that. We know that. It's hard to think about people living 500 meters from us, having no electricity, water, cannot do anything. They just run into the defense, so someone will kill them. That's what they are looking for. It's terrible. And I feel it's our responsibility. We are not responsible for the situation, but as human beings, we have to try and see what we can do in order to improve the life of the people living in Gaza.
Michaela?
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for your question, because it's Volker and me. We are in the last legislation. He was the leader of the German Israeli Parlamentarier group, and often we spoke about this, the Hamas, and we often spoke about. I don't know, you know it. Every year there went 169 million euros to this Matter funds. I don't know, you know it. Yeah, the PLO give to families of suicide bombs money. Yeah, and we spoke often about this, but we do our best. But you have to speak and to speak and to speak to the other people, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult for us. In my party, I spoke sometimes about this, and every time say, but Hamas is in the Gaza Strip, but you have to speak with the Fatah or the PA. It's very difficult, and we tried, but sorry. And I'm not alone in the parliament. I wasn't alone in the parliament. And when Volker, it's the same about this the fund for these people who worked in Zwangsarbeiter. All these themes. Sometimes we spoke about this, but sorry, we have no forgiveness. Maybe.
Mr. Katz, your final remark, and afterwards we are finished, but you have the possibility to have a short repetition afterwards in the plenary, around about 4 o'clock. Nachman, Shai, Alexander Graf, Lambsdorff will be there with me too.
But we have to say other things there, so
totally different.
I'll take the position of the government for a change, and that will be refreshing at least.
Gilad Erdan has done it. First, about the Hamas. Okay, I would like very much to vanish their card, but of course it's not going to happen. They are not going to do that soon. And for me, it's way more important right now to achieve a kind of understanding between us and them, directly or indirectly, that they don't shoot us and we don't shoot them, while we negotiate with the Palestinians in order to achieve a peace agreement. The human rights organizations right now, I fully agree with Nachman. First, human rights organizations right now are active way more than during the Oslo period. I think that there are two main reasons. The first one is the fact that I think human rights today in the world is something that is more developed than 25 years ago. Second, I think that more and more Israeli activists are kind of fed up or don't really have the hope that we are going to have an agreement tomorrow. And if we don't have an agreement, then we have to deal with the fact that we violate rights of millions of people on a daily basis. So, okay, maybe their leaders want to kill us. Maybe their leaders are terrorists. Not maybe, they are. But still, we talk about millions of people that their rights are violated every day. That's why human rights organizations become more and more active. And the government is trying to legitimize them. And by the way, I think one of the ways of delegitimization we have seen this morning from Minister Erdan, which I can agree with 90% what he has said. But to call Roger Waters anti-Semitized only because he opposed the occupation and boycott Israel, I don't agree with that. I am against boycott.
How would you judge a flying pig with a Magan David on it?
I what? Sorry?
How would you judge a pig flying in his concerts with a Magan David on it?
Okay,
it's not anti-Semitic.
Maybe I'm not going to defend him because I'm against boycotts on Israel. Yes, and I'm against the BDS on Israel. So I'm not going to defend him. But I don't think, and this is exactly what they do to human rights organizations in Israel, the same. I don't think that every person that is BDS is anti-Semitized. I think this is a mistake that the government is doing. Okay, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. And by the way, they call BDS even to people who boycott settlements that are outside of Israel. So in the Israeli legislation, they look at the BDS on settlements exactly like BDS on Israel.
Thank you. We agree that we have different opinions, and the discussions have to go on. This is what democracy is about, and this is what Israel is about, because it's a democratic country. Thank you, and we'll see us later here in the Congress. Everybody.